Welcome back to Ruby Rapids. The next data structure we're looking at is the array. In Ruby, an array is basically a sequence of values indexed by integers. So what you see in this example here is that we assign to A an array consisting of 3 elements. The first is the integer 1, the second is the string 2, and the third is a float 3.0. And the indices for into A are then 0, 1, and 2 to access the elements of the array A. Array lookup is very much like you're used to from, say, Java. You have the name of the variable and the index at which you would like to look up what is in the array in angular brackets. So A of 0 here yields 1, A of 1 yields the string 2, A of 2 yields the float 3.0, and A of 3 yields nil. We don't have anything in that index position, and Ruby returns nil, not an exception. In other languages, if you access array elements that don't have a value assigned to them, you can get an exception. Not so in Ruby. Ruby will return nil. Let's have a quick look at the array operators and array methods or forms of access Ruby provides us. The first example here shows you how to initialize a variable with an empty array. We also have an append method, similar to what you saw with strings. This is a mutating append. So A and then the chevrons with the string 1 will append the string 1 to the array A. You can form append sequences like you already saw in the case of strings. So in this case we assign the element 2 as one of the array elements, and the next array element will be a string which carries the result of this expression here, so it should contain the value 3. You can access the subarray consisting of A at the index position 1 and A at the index position 2 by writing A and then in angular brackets the range from 1 to 2. If you want to replace a subarray with new values, you can do that by again giving the index in the angular brackets. This is the sequence or the range of elements that you would like to replace, and then you introduce the new elements that you want to replace them with. You can also repeat array elements or entire arrays. So in this particular case, what we are doing is we are creating an array consisting of a single element. We repeat that element and obtain a new array that has 10 copies of term in it as array elements. Now if we then append the result to A, what will we get? Well, the result of this repetition is an array. So what we are actually doing is we are storing an array as one of the array elements of A. Arrays also offer an each method, which allow us to iterate over all of the elements of the array. And again, we're using a code block here where each element of the array successively is assigned to the variable E, and we can then print that variable E out on the IRB, for instance. Let's try this out in the IRB. We initialize A with an empty array, and we append the string 1 to A, which results in an array of one element, and it's the string 1. we can use an append sequence to add further elements. And now, in fact, we have an array consisting of 3 elements. The first one is called 1, the second is the integer 1, and the third one is the string containing the number 3. We can verify that those are actually in A by looking at what the value of A is. The subarray from 1 to 2 of A is in fact the array consisting of the indices or the index range we have specified, and we can indeed assign to a range of indices what values we want to see there. So I'm now replacing the first and second element by 1 and the string containing 2 respectively. And so if we look at A again, we see that the first element is 1 and the second element is the string 2. Now, in fact, if we append a repeated term here, we get what we had expected, namely that the repeated element here is in fact its own array, and it is appended as a single element into the original array A. So we now have in A an array of 4 elements, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth is an array in and by itself. Now we can iterate over each element of the array, and we'll use a code block that simply writes every array element in a separate line. And in fact, this is the result we get. So the first element is 1, second element is 2, third element is 3. Now that all the 10 term elements here are in separate line is because when POT sees an array, it will print out every element of that array in a new line in and by itself.